What we're talking about today is this very unique AR-15 bolt carrier group, and that is the LAW Tactical ARIC. So this is the ARIC. You can pronounce it however you want, but what it stands for is AR Integrated Carrier. And as you can see, there's actually essentially no carrier behind the bolt itself. It's basically spring. So this goes into an AR-15 upper receiver just like any other carrier will, just like that. You're gonna have these springs sticking out a little bit. So obviously there is some proprietary parts going on to make this system work, and that's what we're gonna kind of go over today. So this is just one of the ways that you can make this thing work. But what you can tell is there's no buffer tube to this AR, and it's still direct impingement, which is super cool. So I can fold this guy and still rack it, which means I can still shoot it like this. So that's pretty cool. The other ways you can run this is you can use this pistol plate adapter. So if you're familiar with how LAW folders actually install, this guy installs in the exact same way, and then you won't have anything on the back of your gun. You just have this pistol adapter. Or what you can do is you can take your classic LAW folder and still use it just like so. And there's just an adapter piece that goes into the LAW folder itself, so the springs stay captured in there and they don't move around. You can use your standard LAW folder. The design of this bolt carrier may look a little unique to you, but it's actually been around for quite some time. So if you look at something like the MCX, you're gonna see a lot of similarities with the bolt carrier. Now, obviously the springs are a different orientation compared to the LAW Tactical ARIC, but essentially it's the same thing. We have a very minimal carrier, and instead of all the extra mass of a standard direct impingement AR-15 carrier, we have some springs that kind of replace the buffer tube. Well, they actually really do. So this system is not proprietary to the MCX. This is very similar to SCAR's, and it really came from the BRN 180 operating system. So what we're doing, long story short, with this LAW Tactical ARIC system is cramming a BRN 180 operating system into a direct impingement AR-15. So there's a lot of benefits to that. Obviously, one being no buffer tube, so I can fold my gun and shoot it. But if you're aware of how the buffer system works on AR-15, it's based on weight and spring, so you're actually removing a lot of the weight from the gun as well. We have less mass on the carrier, so the bolt carrier itself weighs less. You don't have, multiple ounces in your buffer tube for your carbine buffer, your A5 buffer, or whatever the case may be. And you don't even have a buffer tube itself. You just have something like this, a skeleton stock like this MCX stock. So what we're gonna do today is we're actually gonna use this new build that's built around the LAW Tactical ARIC bolt carrier group. So these have been in the armory for quite some time. We've used them in other guns, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But what we have here is a new build specifically built around this, and I'll go over the build once we're all done today. So what we're gonna do is we get started. We're going to zero both of these optics with this monstrosity of an optic setup we got going on here, and we'll shoot some drills and get some opinions finalized on this bolt carrier system. So just to start, this is 300 blackouts, so we're going to shoot some supers and subs. So I got two optics, and let's get into it. That feels super weird. It feels like an empty mag every time. It's working. It doesn't seem like quiet. These. That is not hearing safe. All right. That's a long trigger. Dud. All right, so here's the groups we're working with. This is the zero for the supers. All right, so my group started here and then brought it down to here. And then this is the sub. So I'm a little low of what I want, but offset dot on this strange mount that we'll talk about more later. It's kind of hard to get a good refined zero because you have to have this dot kind of angled appropriately so it's level when you're shooting, and when you adjust left to right, especially with a cheap dot. I do have like a $100 red dot on a $1,500 mount here, literally $1,500 mount. Things get a little weird, but so that's good enough for today for what we're doing. Bolt lock, kind of. supers here. See if we get bolt lock. So as I test different things here at work, I generally test multiple things at the same time. And one of the other things that I am testing at the same time, and I'm testing this, ARIC bolt carrier, is this RaidWorks charging handle. So as you guys saw, this thing was kind of getting blown back as I was shooting. And as you can tell, this guy is not latching onto the upper receiver. So with gas blowback while shooting, this thing was just shooting back. So I'm going to continue testing this charging handle, but for the sake of filming today, I'm going to go ahead and take it out and go to the good old Radian SD charging handle. As you can see, the Radian is latching onto the upper receiver, so something is out of spec with this guy, not so much the upper receiver. So as you guys saw, we got some malfunctions just while zeroing. I will say I've been shooting this ARIC only with 5.56, so I have not shot it with 300 blackout yet, and I haven't got any malfunctions yet, so a little interesting. Now the only malfunction I have been getting, and this is kind of a problem with not having a carrier and no forward assist. So this is a slick slide upper receiver because even if I had a forward assist, it wouldn't do anything because there's no carrier for the forward assist to push. Sometimes the carrier likes to do this, so it will not go completely into battery. You'll see that the bolt is kind of out of battery there a little bit, and with a round in there, I can't push it with my thumb onto where the gas comes out. So if this happens, I don't have a way of forcing the bolt carrier into battery unless I drop the mag, kind of pull it back a little bit and slingshot it back into place. So that's the only thing I've experienced so far before today, but all of that was going on down there. This thing really doesn't like the supers. It's really, really punchy with supers. Subs, it shoots like a dream. It actually shoots super nice. So we're gonna keep shooting, see how it goes. We're gonna do some warm-up drills before we get into the 2 assessment drills we're gonna shoot today. And we'll just keep talking about malfunctions as they happen. Seems like this thing doesn't like Lancer mags. Likes Magpul mags. Even use a 5.56 mag with subs, which generally does not work, but still works. Lancer mags and ARIC bolt carrier just aren't friends. Not getting bolt lock though. All right. It is gassy, dude. I'm like crying. This thing is punchy. So finishing up the warm-up drills, I got 1 super and 1 sub in this magazine. The gun is running subs extremely well, just not getting bolt lock on empty magazines, which is actually fairly common with 300 blackouts if they're under gas. And with this type of system, even though it's a dead air cannon, pushes all of the gas and like all of existence back in your face, it's still just not quite enough for how light this carrier is, which is fine. The gun still functions, but with the supers, I'm getting some sort of double feed. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot a super, see if I get a double feed with the sub, and just see if it's like a feeding issue from a magazine or something. Oh, I got bolt lock with the sub that time. This thing is very inconsistent. The safety's acting super weird. I don't know. It worked really well at 5.56. The gun's really cool though, I can tell you that. Gun doesn't move, dude. You hear that supersonic crack? I thought something blew up. This gun kind of scares me. Actually, I have 15 total, or 17 total. 1, 2, 3, 6, 4 Charlies. Okay, so we're at 4 Charlies, 13 alphas. Should have 15 total hits here. 14 alphas, 1 Charlie, so no mics. So we got 5 total Charlies so far. The rest alphas. There. So we have 5 total Charlies there. That was a 614 hit factor. Not too bad. A little slow. This gun can shoot. So now we're going to do a CQB warm-up. Transition reload. Nope. So just that CQB warm up, my hits aren't as good as I would like them to be, but my times are actually pretty good. So my overall hit factor was a 6.2, which is, it's decent for this drill. I didn't fail any of the time standards. I think I failed one, it was one of the transitions, but all that to say is this gun can be shot pretty well. So shot the 50 round carbine course fire pretty decent with a low 6 hit factor, and then the CQB warm up with a 6.2. So the gun definitely can be ran. Majority of the stuff that we test in Teeny, we actually don't film. And then majority of the things that we are actually filming that we test, we don't film all of the testing. So, and this is the case of the LAW Folder ARIC bolt carrier group. So what we decided to do is come out here for another day and show the bolt carrier used in the 5.56 upper that I did the majority of the testing in, because what you guys are seeing with the use of it with the 300 blackout gun that we built is not exactly representative of the results that I have been getting with the 5.56 gun. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna shoot some fun drills with the bolt carrier group in the 5.56 upper that I've been testing it with. This is a RIS3 Mark 18 with a Surefire RC3 suppressor. I was using the RC3 suppressor and an RC2 Mini with this gun. It works great with both. So we're gonna go ahead and shoot it with that just to kind of demonstrate that. And then we're also going to do is we're going to use the non-suppressed bolt carrier group in this upper, which I haven't done much of, just to see how it functions. And then we're going to do the same thing with the 300 blackout with supers and subs, just to see how it cycles with the non-suppressed bolt carrier group. Now, one thing to note, this RaidWorks charging handle that we talked about earlier actually works in the Mark 18 upper receiver. So it seems, it latches. So kind of strange. Now I have a Geisley charging handle in this upper receiver from the 300 blackout. We used a Radian, we used the RaidWorks. Every charging handle, including a mil-spec, latched on this upper receiver besides the RaidWorks. So maybe the RaidWorks just has a tighter tolerance comparatively to these other charging handles. So let's get to it. speed. It's another failure to extract. Another one. Or 6. We're gonna do the test now where we shoot supers and subs through the unsuppressed bull carrier with the gun unsuppressed. So we're about to have a very unpleasant experience with this shorty gun in this setup. So we're gonna do that with the 300 blackout and the 5.56. Now, obviously we don't expect the subs to cycle with this, but we're just gonna see how it does. We're just gonna do, 10 rounds if it makes it. We're gonna start with the supers though. Okay. Oh, that hurt my head. I know it hurt yours. Now, the subs. Okay, short stroke. Yeah, it's not gonna cycle the subs. But, worked as intended, so let's do the 5.56. We're gonna do 5.56 unsuppressed with 62 grain. All right. Short stroke. All right, well, that's disappointing. So this is the unsuppressed carrier. It's intended to work with 5.56 and 300 blackout unsuppressed. You saw it worked with the 300 blackout supers, but a 10.3 Mark 18 with 62 grain MCX stack, so very hot ammo. It is not cycling. So I would consider that very, very disappointing. The last thing I want to do is shoot supers unsuppressed with the suppressed carrier. Now the reason why I want to do that is because all of the malfunctions, well, most of the malfunctions we were experiencing with the supers the other day, I think was due to carrier speed. This thing was just moving extremely fast with the setup, and that's why the gun was also feeling super punchy. So I'm just curious to see how the suppressed carrier does with supers unsuppressed, to see if that makes the shooting experience a little more pleasant and see if it actually cycles. This is super annoying. This happens like every single time I first load a mag into it. Okay. All right, here we go. Well, it definitely worked better than suppressed, but still extremely punchy. This is like, if I had to relate it to something, shooting like a SCAR 17 without a muzzle brake on it. I'm not kidding, that's how punchy this is. So we just shot 310 rounds through this setup here to try and replicate the results that I have been seeing with the ARIC bolt carrier group up to the making of this video. And as you guys saw, still had a couple malfunctions with the 5.56 particularly. It was the same exact malfunction every time as a failure to extract. So basically a double feed was happening with an empty casing in the round going into the chamber. Had that 5 times over the 310 rounds, which is not what I experienced before. To be clear, I have about 1,500 to 2,000 rounds on this exact setup, not this lower, but this upper with either the RC3 or an RC2 Mini. and I didn't have any malfunctions other than what I mentioned already, the bolt not going into battery completely, which happens with every single setup because of the mass of this carrier being so light. Now, one thing I want to mention about our testing and evaluation process is this is not exactly the normal. So when I do testing and evaluation on products, specifically products we're looking to sell on the website, this was not a contender to sell on the website due to price and some other value reasons. It's much more scientific. I'll put quotes around that. So I record all the results, I'll make a white paper, and generally that is shared throughout the company. For this case, for items like this, we have a very casual testing and evaluation process. Generally it just gets thrown in the armory. We have just a general rough round count put on it. We just keep mental notes or write down some notes of malfunctions or things that we see, and then we might make a video like this on it. But it's not nearly as formal as other things that I've done, like if you're familiar with our optic evaluation testing. So wrapping this up, let's go over the build of this gun from front to back. So on the front of the gun, we have a Dead Air Sandman K. So this is their miniature 7.62 suppressor, or somewhat small 7.62 suppressor. And if you're wondering what I think about Dead Airs, I hate them. I don't think they're good suppressors at all. I think they have a lot of flash. They're not very quiet. As you could hear, these subsonic rounds, I couldn't tell the difference. I couldn't tell if they were actually sub rounds or not. I could just tell they were slightly more quiet than the supers. They were not hearing safe. So yeah, I don't like the suppressor at all. Going on from there, we have a Vampire flashlight and a BCM CAG grip. And this is the Daniel Defense MFR XL rail. So this is, as you can tell by the girth of the handguard over the suppressor, you can kind of judge about how thick this rail is. It's a very nice rail, even if you're not going to use it for integrally suppressed use like this setup. The barrel, I'm actually not sure who makes the barrel, and this is just one of just a 300 blackout barrel we had laying around in the armory. It's an 8-inch barrel or 7.5-inch barrel, BCM gas block, nothing fancy going on there. Then the upper receiver is a slick side arrow precision upper receiver. So I got a slick slide upper because, like I said earlier, this bolt carrier group doesn't have a carrier behind it. So even if I had a full assist, it wouldn't be pushing anything. So again, kind of built this gun to be optimized for this bolt carrier, this LAW Tactical ARIC setup. So lower is an Aero Precision Cerakote FTE lower. It's just all mil-spec parts, including mil-spec trigger. Got a Reptilla grip. Don't really like them, but it's tan, looks kind of good, so that's why I put it on there. And then going back from there, we have Radiant SD charging handle like we already talked about. We swapped that out from the Raidworks because the Raidworks wasn't latching. We have a Ground Combat Solutions Picatinny adapter, and they made this for the LAW Tactical ARIC bolt carrier group. So this allows me to attach things like an MCX stock. I can even attach a collapsing stock or a telescoping stock like an MP5 style or something like that. So one thing I really don't like about this thing is where the QD point is on the Ground Combat Solutions Picatinny adapter. It's down here if I'm holding the gun, it's really in the way. I actually have no idea why you'd put a QD here, but it is better than having a QD at the end of the gun, in my opinion, for shooting. So I was just wearing a glove on this hand, so it wasn't all that uncomfortable. And then going back from there, we have an MCX stock. So just your standard MCX Virtus collapsing stock. So full disclosure, LAW Tactical did send us the ARIC bolt carrier groups for free. So I have 2 of them, one of which is this one. This is the non-suppressed one. And it is not usable because the retaining pin that holds the springs on flew off and I lost it. So that is one thing to be mindful about with this, is it just slides on. And if you bump it when you're putting it into your gun, which I've done multiple times, this little retaining pin will come off and these springs will go flying. And I have yet to find that retaining pin. So I have 1.5 of these bolt carrier groups. LAW Tactical also sent us the pistol tube adapter. So they sent us that, but everything else on this gun, including the Ground Combat Solutions adapter, everything else is not from LAW Tactical. So even if they send us this whole gun, it's not going to change what I'm going to say about this. The first point I want to bring up about the LAW Tactical ARIC bolt carrier group is the price of this system, and particularly the price with this Picatinny adapter. So if you have a LAW folder or this Picatinny adapter, the price is going to be somewhat the same. Now you may be wondering, what is this price compared to an MCX? You'd probably assume that this is cheaper than an MCX, and it's actually not. So this bolt carrier group is $389. It's very expensive, and that does not include a LAW folder or something like this adapter. This adapter is $170. A LAW folder You can look them up online. They're not cheap either. So a whole system, so this bolt carrier group and this adapter, you're looking over 550 bucks. So that is not a cheap solution to make your gun be able to shoot while it's folded and whatnot. So a little disappointed in the price because if this was a cheaper solution, then obviously that'd make it much more enticing. Now, regardless of price, as you guys saw, just in the little bit of shooting we did today, we shot about 500 rounds today. We got a lot of malfunctions. So some of the malfunctions were magazine related. The Lancer mags were not feeding subsonic rounds all that well. They were just getting stuck on the lip of the magazine. So once we swapped to the Magpul, actually we had basically no malfunctions. The only issues we were having is we weren't getting bolt lock. But I re-lubed the gun. But that is one point I need to bring up, is this needs to be well lubricated. Once it's well lubricated with the Magpul magazines, shooting subsonic rounds, sorry about that, it works just fine. Now shooting the supersonic rounds, it was just an unpleasant experience. So it was very, very punchy. If you've ever shot 300 blackout, supers obviously are gonna recoil more than subsonic rounds. But this gun, it felt like something was breaking every time I shot it. It actually, every round I shot, it felt like the gun was getting bolt locked. So it was just uncomfortable. I was getting a lot of stuff back to the face, and I just didn't want to shoot it with supers anymore. So just shot subs for the rest of the day. The final thing to talk about on the build of this gun is this optic setup. So this is obviously very strange. So we have just a Vortex Spark that I have beat to oblivion. It still functions actually. And then I have this primary arms red dot, don't even know what model it is, on this canted red dot mount. So this is made by McCloy Implement, probably said the name wrong. But this mount is $1,500. That's right, that is a $1,500 red dot mount that is slightly canted and slightly above your lower 1/3 mount. That's absurd. So when they sent it to us, naturally I put the cheapest red dot in the armory on it. And this is what we're using it on. We're using it on this gun. So this optic is set up for subs, this one's set up for supers. And all jokes aside, this optic setup, if you're running subs and supers, actually is pretty functional. But the fact that this mount is more expensive than the gun is pretty ridiculous. In my opinion, the biggest benefit to this system is the weight of the gun. These guns are extremely light, including with a suppressor, because we don't have the weight of the buffer, the weight of a spring, weight of a buffer tube, and we're missing half of the mass of the bolt carrier itself. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna throw up the graphics of how much this 10.3 Mark 18 weighs with suppressor and everything, and then also the 7.5-inch 300 blackout. To summarize my final opinions on this bolt carrier group, I'm going to answer the question of should you buy one of these or not? And I'm going to say no, you should not. This is pretty expensive for what it does. This bolt carrier group plus, you know, the LAW folder or an adapter like this, or even the pistol tube adapter, you're well over 500 bucks for a system that you can shoot while folded, and I just don't think that's worth the money. Now, like I said, the 5.56, using this for 5.56, we didn't have any issues, but with the 300 blackout, as you guys saw, lots of malfunctions, lots of issues. So definitely not worth the money in my opinion. It is a really cool system. I really do appreciate companies like LAW Tactical innovating. They are essentially creating a whole new operating system, or at least, you know, implementing that BRN 180 style operating system into, you know, something that's supposed to be direct impingement, which I find very cool. And the fact that it works as well as it does is super impressive. But like I said, it's just not worth the money. Now, if you do have the extra coin laying around and you're looking to build a fun gun, I probably still wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend you just use that extra money, get some ammo, and go train with the guns you do have. So until next time, guys, Brandon at T.REX.